Hi, this is Carlos Cousins, and we're now going to be approaching a reading problem that asks us to rephrase a sentence. When you have this sort of problem and you realize that by looking at the answer choices, the only thing that is changing is the grammar of the sentence in question, you don't really have to worry about what the rest of the passage says, and all you can focus about is what seems to be the least cumbersome grammatical um, form of saying what is said in that sentence. So the sentence here is reproduced in the question, and it says, in England for centuries, they taxed salt heavily. So already looking at this sentence, something to watch out for is the they. To figure out if this should be there or not, we should be looking back at the passage and see if there's a previous sentence where they mention a group of people that they could be referring to, that the author of the passage could be referring to as they. But here we see that this is the first sentence of a paragraph. So this is really something that you need to watch out for. So anything that has that we can already cross out. So it's not going to be as it is now. For centuries in England, they taxed salt heavily. Well, who is they? We don't know. We don't like that construction. In England, for centuries, they were taxing salt heavily. Again, the they. And then we're left with two answer choices here. In England, for centuries, salt was heavily taxed, or salt was taxed heavily by England for centuries. And then here you just have to ask yourself what the difference between these two is. And what is different here is that here the subject that is taxing the salt is England. So is England taxing salt is the question that you should be asking. Or is salt being taxed in England? Because here, salt was being heavily taxed is in the passive. But it's not saying that it was taxed by anyone. It's simply saying that it was taxed within England. And I think it's pretty obvious once you circle who's doing the taxing, that salt was heavily taxed is a better option, in that it wasn't England that was taxing the salt. Also, the construction of this sentence, salt was taxed heavily by England for centuries, places the subject that is doing the action in the center, which doesn't feel very, it doesn't feel very nice. You should have England tax salt for centuries, so that the sentence is not passive anymore and it becomes an active sentence. So this would be the best option by far. In England for centuries, salt was heavily taxed, even though this clause here is passive. And I hope that helped with this problem. When you see problems like this in the future, well, try to figure out when you see that an action is being performed, who is performing the action, and whether the part of the sentence that is talking about that is in a separate clause. If it is, that is okay. If it is not, like here, it's awkward and it should be written differently. I hope that helped, and happy prepping.